Good afternoon. It's the Nick Handley Show, episode number 7. And it's very appropriate that we're having episode number 7 because we're going to spend the entire day talking to a guy who donned the number 7 as good as you can as a college football player. Before I get into that, it is the Nick Handley Show. Be sure to subscribe to Husker Max on YouTube. You can also check me out on Twitter or X at Nick Handley OMA. Later this week, going to get into Nebraska's bowl destination. As we know, they will be New York bound in the Pinstripe Bowl. They'll be taking on Boston College. So I'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the week. But this weekend, speaking of New York, it is the Heisman Trophy ceremony. We know who's been invited. We know who the odds-on favorite is to win, a two-way player. Could we see the first one since Woodson and Travis Hunter, or will we see the return of the running back with Ashton Jeanty? Well, one guy who knows the feeling of going into it, hoisting that big mama jamma, is none other than Eric Crouch, the 2001 Heisman Trophy winner, former Husker, and a good friend of mine as well. Eric, I'm glad. I know this is a wild week for you. You're on one coast, you're going to be on the other coast, but how are you, my man?
I'm doing great, man. It's always nice to talk to you.
So you're in Vegas right now, and that has college football. That has a college football tie to it as well. Then you're going to be in New York, obviously. We know for the Heisman Trophy. So this is
it's
a fun
great
college
week, Nick.
week.
Yeah, I mean it's a great week. I mean, growing up and playing football and being associated with sports, this is an exciting week. I mean, you've got Frank Solich, Woodhead, the guys that I'm here supporting in Las Vegas that are getting inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. And then obviously just supporting the university. And this is just a special week all the way around. You've got that. And then at the end of the week, heading to New York City to welcome in the new Heisman Trophy winner. And there's always excitement around, being in New York City when you're announcing that new winner. So it's been an exciting football season. You've got the playoff now. It changes things a little bit with how the Heisman ceremony sets up. And I think it shortens the weekend a little bit. But I think it's good for college football. And, having these type of awards at the end of the year just creates a lot more buzz.
Before we get into that, because I know this week has to bring up a lot of memories, even 23 years ago. But you mentioned Frank Solich and his induction into the College Football Hall of Fame. We've seen him now back in Lincoln a handful of times and has been more integrated with the program itself. And I know for you, that was your coach. That was someone that means so much to you. To see him in the place that he's at with Nebraska football, what does that mean to someone who meant so much to you and your success?
Well, he was a amazing coach and mentor to me, and I credit a lot of the things that went my way in terms of winning football games and awards to having great coaches, and Frank Solich is on the top of that. Obviously, getting a scholarship offer from Tom Osborne didn't hurt, and Turner Gill and all his guys. I mean, I just had a huge supporting cast around me. But for Frank to see him go through what he went through at Nebraska, to being very successful at Ohio, and then getting inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, it's kind of coming full circle. And I'm really happy for him and his family. Every time I see him, I see the emotion in him and his family about, I just think it had to be I don't know if it's pressure or just, obviously what happened in Nebraska wasn't what he wanted. I don't think his family nobody wanted that. Obviously looking back on it, it hurt the program a lot. And so I just think it's just, for me personally, to see him get inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame, it's just, I'm truly happy for him and honored to be part of the success that he had. And a lot of that was due because of his coaching ability. And one of them was that play called at Oklahoma, the flash 41 reverse pass. So that's pretty cool.
That was during that year, too, that we will get into the 2001 season. I know there were a lot of former players that obviously stay in contact with Coach, before he had returned to Nebraska. But was it one of those situations that when you'd have those conversations, you wouldn't necessarily bring up the, hey, when you coming back question? It was more of just the connection that you always had and cherished?
Well, I've remained friends and close to Coach Solich by talking to him. We never let at least a 6 month or a year go by before we had a conversation, either in person or on the phone. That takes two ways, to keep that going. It's like any relationship. Sometimes I just catch myself thinking about him, and I'll pick up the phone and call. And I think the same thing happens for him. And I've done that with Turner Gill and a lot of my other coaches. And it's just a special time, when you're, 18 to 22, 23 years old, and you're going through becoming a young man. And, you're playing a tough sport, especially at a program that holds football in such a high regard. And, you're putting in full time, school, full-time football. So there's just not a lot of time for a lot of the extra stuff. But you look back on it and you just say, man, all that stuff was really worth it. I'd do it all over again.
This week, the reason I thought to talk to you is I don't know how many times we've had a chance in the last 10 years that on the various shows that I've been on, whether it's the Nick Handley show on AM 590 or Mornings with Sharp and Handley on 1620, and the times that I've had a chance to talk with you, it's usually the current state of affairs. It's usually, okay, what do you think about this matchup coming up? What do you think of this coach? What do you think of what the offense is doing? This quarterback, obviously a hot button topic all the time. But very rarely have we had a chance to go back to 23 years ago in that season that I want to talk about as well. But here we are on a Tuesday. We're recording this on a Tuesday, and we know that there are going to be Heisman finalists that are making their way out to New York that week for you, because you just get done with what was obviously people knew a very tough loss against Colorado. And then you're wondering, okay, are you guys, is it going to work in the BCS, the old BCS formula? It sounds like it was 50 years ago. Will the numbers work out to where Nebraska will still have a chance to play for a national championship? And we know the answer was yes. So if you can remember going back that week, how do you compartmentalize everything that you still are working for to at least allow yourself to enjoy the buildup to that Saturday where you were hoping you would hold a Heisman Trophy, but you didn't maybe necessarily know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just remember, and thanks for the reminder, 23 years ago.
Hey,
Yeah,
you're wearing it
we're
so much
getting old,
better than
man.
all of you're wearing it so much better than all of us, my man.
Trust me. It's still, I'm still happy to be around. I remember quite a bit of this weekend. It was very special to me and my family and the team and the program and everybody around. I just wanted to absorb the atmosphere. I'd never been to New York City. I didn't expect to win. In my head, you're like, man, this would be a pretty cool award to win. But I just, going in there as a running quarterback with three other guys, Ken Dorsey, Rex Grossman, and Joey Harrington, who all put up like these huge numbers in terms of the pass game. And I didn't have that, matter of fact, I probably threw more interceptions than I did touchdown passes. But I was a running quarterback. And I just didn't know how that would sit in with the voters. And to be honest, I didn't really think about it all that much. I just was there to have a good time and meet people and be cordial and enjoy the atmosphere of New York City and meeting the other players that were going through the same thing that I was. And so I took it as more of a relationship building opportunity than anything. And so, but all in all, man, I was happy to get in. It's been 23 years of amazing times and meeting new people and going to places I never thought I would go and things that I would do. And it's quite the honor. So again, I mean, I look at this and say, hey, someone's life is forever going to change on Saturday. And that's that. And they're going to be known as, as much as they want to, the Heisman Trophy winner. And it carries some weight. And but it's something that, I mean, if you truly look back on it, I am grateful for the people that were around me all the way through youth football at high school to college to even after that. And it's really, yes, I worked hard. I loved football. I was a diehard. But honestly, the people around you, the program that I went to, going to Nebraska in the 90s was not a bad idea. You had some support. Okay. We were doing all right. So I can't take full credit for this, but it is nice to have the old Heisman Trophy sitting in your house.
Okay, this is the one area that I don't know if people get into enough. And back in 2001, it probably wasn't necessarily the main emphasis, but nowadays it looks like it is. How did you choose your suit?
Oh, uh,
Well, did you have it already
well,
hanging up in the closet, or did you get
no,
tailored and
it's
everything?
funny. It's funny. I've even worn it afterwards. For some reason, I don't
Okay.
have too many suits. But uh, Jerry Ryan in Omaha.
Yep.
I don't know if you've been there.
Oh yeah.
Good friends with the company and the people there. They're great, fantastic. And so that's where I went, had my connection, and they put, you know, suited me up, suited and booted. So that's kind of what I did. I had it before I went out. I've still got it hanging up in my closet, and I kind of look at it and go, "Wow, that's some hell of a memory right there." But it is 4 buttons, so it looks a little
Uh,
formal,
it's a
and
little
it's a
dated.
little, and it's a little, back in that time, we were still wearing suits that were kind of baggy,
Mhm.
and so it's like now it's like if I were to put this on, I it doesn't look right. It just does not look right. I can wear it today, but it definitely doesn't have the. I've learned a lot from Mike Rozier and Johnny Rogers over the years too on how to dress. So
Yeah, yeah.
have a little bit more bling than what I did on that night.
You mentioned getting a chance to talk and spend some time and just for a moment learning about the guys themselves as opposed to the competitors and the players like a Dorsey, like a Harrington. Rex
Mhm,
Grossman was kind of the young pup. He was a sophomore that year.
mhm.
Did you guys have a lot of functions together leading up to the event on Saturday? Did you guys just decide, hey, let's go down in the hotel lobby and have a drink and just talk? Or how did some of the social interacting go with it?
Yeah. I think the groups did a pretty good job of putting us together in certain situations. We did quite a bit together throughout the city. I mean, it was a packed couple of days there.
Mm,
And then after the award on Saturday night, most of the left on Sunday, and then I think at that time we stayed till like Tuesday or Wednesday. There was a lot more, functions, Boys and Girls Club, and other things that we were doing. Went down to Ground Zero, so there was quite a bit going on. That year is also reflective of 9/11 for me, and it just um, kind of gives me chills just thinking about being the winner that year with what happened that to all those people and just the whole thing with 9/11 is just makes you kind of sit there and go, my wife and I were just talking about this. She's like, man, the years that you're winning things, it's just strange things happening, because so like the Heisman, obviously with 9/11, got inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2020, which is the pandemic year. And so it was like, and I just told her, I said, I think it just keeps you humble
yeah.
in terms of like, just kind of reminds me like, football really isn't everything. The awards, they're special, but you can't let it get to your head. And you want to always thank those around you and the people that, put you in this position. So, for me, I kind of reflect on those big things that happened outside that, affect a lot more people than just, hoisting up an award.
Did Ken Dorsey ever say, was there any trash talking going on? I mean, that was the
No,
national
I
championship
think
was just weeks
everybody
away.
Yeah, I think everybody was pretty good. I can't even remember if it was Friday night or Saturday night. Now we're getting into it a little bit on memory checks here, but like I remember sitting and watching. We were at the ESPN zone in New York City, and we were all there. All the finalists were there. I think it was actually before. I want to say, it was like the stars were aligning for Nebraska to go play in the national title game because I want to say Colorado beat Texas. LSU lost and Tennessee lost. All these teams lost, and all of a sudden it's like Nebraska's strength of schedule. All of a sudden went boop, 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 and it just put
Yep.
us, right there. And I just, it was just pretty cool to come out of New York City with the Heisman Trophy and then playing for the national championship. So it was special. We had a great time, and all the things that were centered around that. For me, again, just kind of a blessing to have all that stuff happen to me and my family. And again, like going back almost every year, we've only missed a few years, but you're meeting new winners that walk in and
Mhm.
you kind of know exactly what's happening. And you meet some former or not, but Heisman winners that come back. that you haven't met in the past. So, just it's good to be around it. It really is. It's we're getting to the point, where I think the family knows, the Heisman family knows, like we've got to get closer. We've got a lot of guys that are in the NFL right now. A lot of
Mhm.
the guys that have won over the last 10 years, maybe even a little bit longer than that, are still playing in the NFL. And they're having some great careers. And so we're trying to create an atmosphere. We haven't gotten together a whole lot, but this past year was the first time that we've started, what we are calling the Heisman Summit. And really that is to bring the winners together in April, somewhere in the warm weather to meet, have dinner, play golf, and just kind of hang out with one another and get to know
Mhm.
each other. And I think that's great. I wish we would have started that 20 years ago. Um, because when I won the Heisman Trophy, it was the Downtown Athletic Club had just got closed because of 9/11. So there was a lot of turmoil around, where was the Heisman Trophy going to be housed and who was going to house it and how is this going to work? And so there was a lot of I would just say, anger and like uh, uncertainty around it. And thankfully it worked out. I think that the trust did a nice job in preserving it, and it's been kind of a battle to let those marks out a little bit with like how our former winners can use the Heisman Trophy name and likeness and image and things like that. So they're getting much better with it now, and there's a lot of room for improvement. But I'm glad I'm part of that group and I have a voice.
Would your golf game been okay, say 2002, 2003 if you guys were doing that?
Yeah, I mean it's an up and down game. Let's put it that way. I love playing golf, but man, some days aren't the greatest.
Oh, well, so this takes me back. So for people who, and I know there's probably a lot of our childhood friends that are gonna be watching and listening to this, because for people who didn't know Eric, I met you, I think we were 8 years old, Nyhart Elementary,
Yeah.
and you never played baseball, at least organized baseball, very long.
I couldn't throw a
Basketball.
baseball, Nick. That was the problem.
Yeah,
You
but
don't
you
go out
could,
for
but
sport, you're not.
we'd play in the
Yeah,
parking lot, and you would,
sure.
every ball you'd usually hit to your house, and then we would watch you throw a football from half court into the hoop probably 5 out of 10 times. When we'd mess around doing pickup basketball, either inside or outside, you were always involved, and it was almost as if no matter what sport you were introduced to, at the very least, at the worst, you were above average. So what is it like to just be that gifted? I mean, you pick up some type of sport and all of a sudden you're better than most of us who've probably been trying for 10 or more years to be good at that. I mean, this started when you were 8 years old. I remember this. You were always the
Well,
first guy picked.
if it's any consolation here, my daughter almost beat me in pickleball the other day, so that sells something. Almost
That makes
didn't
me,
let her
oh
win.
yeah, almost. And then
Almost
yeah, I'm sure you
didn't let her
figured it
win.
out.
No, I think it's just and not that I've stayed in awesome shape by any means. I know I've got a lot of room to go. But it's just, I think it just comes down to the, competitive nature. Sports has always been fun. I've always had a little bit of a gift for that, being athletic and things like that. So, I again, I I was this is who I am. I was born this way. Like I said, it was but you have to work for things, man. I've had to work really
Yeah.
hard. Like it's not like, hey, here you go, you've got the world. It's man, I dedicated a lot of time to lifting weights. I knew I was a scrawny little, kid. I had to lift weights. I lifted. Then I had to be not only had to lift weights, I had to go back twice. Like twice a day to do it.
Mhm.
So there was just some things that other kids may not have been willing to do. And so, I went out for multiple sports. Some kids just wanted to focus on one. Where I decided to run track. I thought it was man, it really helped me to run track as a kid and play basketball and do multiple things. I always encourage kids to play multiple sports because it develops other muscle types and you build more relationships and who knows, you might really like it and be good at it. So um, and that's kind of how it went for me. And again, to be honest, I started out with great youth football, basketball coaches. Coaches that encouraged me to learn and dig in and be competitive and kind of develop that winning attitude. And a lot of it came down to just showing up and trying. It's easy to say that, but sometimes it's hard to just go there and give all your effort, and if you can go outside and join programs and give effort, you start having success. And then once that happens, it kind of gets contagious. You're like, I want a little bit more of that. And so I was pretty fortunate that for me, I kind of just dialed it in high school, and those 4 years are pivotal in terms of like getting recruited for the next step in college, because it allowed Notre Dame and Ohio State and Nebraska and some of these big schools to offer me a scholarship that really propelled me in life. I mean, not having student loans coming out of college, it just helps in all different ways. I mean, I was able to, buy a business. I was able to get a car and a house. Like there's just certain things like I was able to do. And a lot of that came down to just, looking back and saying, man, you worked your butt off. And that's kind of the mentality that I've continued to have through even my business career.
You mentioned high school, and everyone knows the career you had at Millard North. In college, you got the best of both worlds when it came to rivalries. When it was Oklahoma in 2000 and 2001, we remember those games in Norman, and then the one in Lincoln you just made reference to earlier. But also Colorado was always, that Black Friday affair was always something.
Oh yeah.
But I want to go back to as far as the nastiness that it took on, because I remember watching this from Millard South, but then when I transferred over to Millard West, we weren't much of a football program. In fact, I don't even know if you remember this. People may remember that Eric Crouch used to return punts as well.
Yeah.
You guys were beating us at Millard West like it was like, I don't know, 35-7 in the second quarter. You got held up in a pile. I thought, all right, I'm going to be the pile driver. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to try to clean it up, man. And I'm going to talk a little trash to Eric when I do it. I know I went in with full might. It was like running into a brick wall. I remember looking at the grass, and the grass was red. We were wearing our green jerseys, but they were blue. I know I was concussed that night. I know your buddy Eric Hammer also. He did some stuff in that game too. So we were never really any type of threat for you guys. But I remember that Millard South rivalry. I remember you had the very famous license plate that they somehow got their hands on, and then they blew it up on a sign for the game.
Oh my gosh, the old high school stuff.
I know guys that said, when we get Eric in a pile, we're going to twist his ankles and stuff like that. Was a nasty rivalry for you guys.
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah. I remember they actually got it done one time on the ankle. So, and they got the license plate. Shoot, they got everything. They got everything they wanted.
That had to prepare you for Oklahoma and Colorado. I mean, people talk about OU Colorado, but I mean, you had Millard North, Millard South right there.
Yeah, I know. That was probably a bigger rivalry than anything that happened in college. So no, it was fun. It was fun. Man, those are good times. And it makes you stronger. That's what it is. It's just, you got to get through this stuff. And yeah, man, I remember, times of anger and, kind of like what's going on and things that would happen. I think, some things happened to my house, in my mom's yard, and things like, vandalism or, whatever is happening. But it kind of comes along with the territory, because, everybody probably doesn't know the story, but I was supposed to go to Millard South. I mean, that's where I grew up, in that side of town. And so we moved, but we were still in the Millard South district. And kind of this was probably I don't know how much this happened, but it was kind of like maybe trend setting for what happened. Today it's like, hey, anybody goes anywhere, but in recruiting and all that. But, my mom had a relationship. She worked together with Coach Petito, and that's how they, got me to come to a camp at one summer from 8th grade. And Coach Petito said, yeah, we might want to try to get him over here at Millard North, because they run quite a bit of option. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, I like to run it, so let's go. And so that, the rest is history with that. But it just, I mean, I think that's kind of what maybe stemmed a little bit of it, actually a lot of it, probably.
A lot of it, yeah.
It worked out. I still have some good friends from Millard South, so, but it worked.
It did work. And, I bring that up too, because you mentioned it came with the territory. You were the focal point, not only for teams like Millard South and Millard West, but everybody across the state, because you were always a marked man. People knew in order to beat Millard North, they had to beat you, much like your time in Nebraska. If they were going to beat Nebraska, they had to neutralize you. And I remember telling people this little bit later on in college, someone had asked me, was Eric always going to go to Nebraska? And I said, I think he always wanted to, but people always, because in that offense, your arm never really was displayed. And I brought up your time before you got to Millard North. Again, another offense where your arm isn't always displayed. It was more high percentage option type pass opportunities. But I remember when we were 14 and you were playing quarterback and you would sling it. I mean, it was more of a pro style type offense where you would run every now and then. And I remember saying, you're not getting interest. I knew you were being recruited by Ohio State and Notre Dame. And I remember telling this person, he's not getting interest from those two schools if he can't throw the football. If Eric needs to throw the football, he can. The dude's got a cannon. He's just he's a gifted runner. So for you in high school, was it always that type of game? You're heading to Nebraska no matter what, or was Notre Dame and Ohio State were they close at any point?
Yeah, I think they were very close. That's why I looked at 3 different schools. I went to their summer camps. I got offered a scholarship, and I think what happened at Ohio State is I ran a 4.33 40. They asked me to do it again. I remember Dave Kennedy, the strength coach, was like, kind of looked at his watch. He's like, that can't be right. Why don't you run it again for me? So I actually ended up running the same exact time. And so they offered me a scholarship that camp. And the scholarship was is like, they used to call the athlete term.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't really like, I kind of, I wanted to play quarterback here, guys, and same thing happened at Notre Dame. I ran a pretty good 40 time and they offer the athlete tag. And so I came back to Nebraska, and Nebraska was always offering me the quarterback tag. Right. So it kind of made my decision really easy. And then after I committed to Nebraska, I got a phone call from both Ohio State and Notre Dame. And I'm like, well, I got to make my decision. You guys wanted me as an athlete. Nebraska wanted me as a quarterback. And they're like, no. We didn't say that. Well, you can play quarterback here. I said, okay. So, but honestly, yes, you're right. I mean, I was never really able to display my arm. And I remember when I was with the Packers, a couple of coaches came up to me and specifically said, yeah, you can really throw the football. We had no idea that you could throw it. And that was a compliment that I'll never forget, because it was like, hey, you're in the NFL at this point and you're just digging to kind of get noticed, and you're hopping around and doing your thing. And it's just like, man, it's really nice and it came from a defensive coach, so when the defensive coach says that, not an offensive coach, that they mean it. And that was just a big compliment for me, because I didn't really get ever complimented on throwing the football, because I really never got the chance. I'll tell you what really helped me was if I could do this all over, Nick, I'd go to the CFL, right? I just, it was hard, because like, you're projected as a, second or a third round pick in the NFL. And you're like, shoot, why would I say no to that? And just, but, again, hindsight's always 2020, but the CFL allows you to just really open it up. It's a running, throwing, big throws. I who knows, could have had a nice career up there, or someday maybe made it back to the NFL. But I still always believed in myself. I had a tough up and down career, just with all the injuries and different teams. And every time I'd get close to getting on the field, and something would happen to me. And I think that a lot had to do with, I had a few carries at Millard North and maybe a few more at Nebraska. So, my body probably had, I was kind of like a running back. They only last average running back lasts like 4 or 5 years in the NFL. Right. So I kind of attributed that to my, I chased my dream for 6, 7 years after that. And my body couldn't take anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple parts of the college career leading up to that 2001 season that I wanted to ask you about. And I appreciate now all of the different social media platforms during the season. They try to fire up the fan base by showing former Huskers in big plays, and it never fails. Every week leading up to the Iowa game, there's the 99 Nebraska Iowa game
every year.
Mikel Brown. I mean, first of all, have you ever talked to Mikel Brown? Have you ever said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry I did that to you"?
No, I haven't. And I don't know that I would apologize either, Nick.
You should.
So, I mean, it was an interesting game for me, because, man, I was close to leaving the program, just 2 weeks earlier, and so happy that I didn't. that should be a learning lesson for a lot of players that, want to hit the button, the easy button or the eject button. Is that, man, if I would have done that, we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking today. I wouldn't be in Las Vegas, and I certainly wouldn't be going to New York. And so, when it gets really, really, really hard, that's kind of the time to grind it out, and it's always hard to know when that is. But it's funny because I'll get sent that play, and it always brings back an amazing memory for me that I wasn't the starter. I didn't even start that game, but I got put in, and I had my one series opportunity that they were going to give me, and I just had to make the best of it. And really, it's kind of like that play is probably embodies more of the type of player that I want to be. Because I really loved the contact of part of the game of football. Yeah. And, could you spear with your helmet and the crown of your helmet back then? Yeah. Could you clothesline? Could you drag? Yeah. I mean, you could go over the knee, you could target it. I mean, it was just boy, you really had to learn how to get down and protect yourself. But I really loved that part of the game. And it just kind of set the tone that, hey, if I'm taking the snaps here, this is how this offense is going to be. We're going to go out and attack, and we're going to punish them. And I just got so pumped up. I just remember before the games, I'd go over the linemen, and we'd be headbutting each other and screaming and get ready to go, and here I am halfway knocked silly before the game even starts because you got Dominic Raiola headbutting you, it's
Right.
like, oh, I'm able to skip you next time, buddy.
And that I'm glad you brought up the transfer part of it too, because a lot of us remember that day when we heard that you'd left Lincoln. You didn't leave the team, but you came back to Omaha.
Yeah, I came back. I did. Yeah.
And
I was close. I mean, I had Frank and Ron Brown and Turner Gill all coming to Millard North and Petito, and we just had to hash it out. And at the end of the day, they wanted me to help them win, and I just said, okay, let's do it. I actually became a receiver.
Yep.
So I was in the receiver room for 2 weeks with Ron Brown. They moved me. I wasn't even a quarterback anymore. So they brought me in. They're like, hey, we can get you on the field at receiver. And I said, just, all right, let's go. And so the deal is they were going to put me in as a quarterback for one series in the game. And I'd be a receiver, but I'd be able to get my series at quarterback. And so I think what happened is this kind of transitioned. I don't know if it was just there was a lot of pressure for Bobby or what it was, but it just seemed like, things went a little bit better when I was in at quarterback. And I think the coaches saw it and ended up making that change. And I'll never forget this. We played Mississippi, Ole Miss. No, not Ole Miss. Mississippi State. No, not Mississippi State. Who the heck do we play? Southern Miss.
Southern Miss. Yep.
Southern Mississippi. My sophomore year, and man, was that a tough game. I think we squeaked it out by like 3 points. I think we were like on the 4-inch line going into our end zone and almost fumbled the ball to get out of there. I'm like, holy cow, thank God, because like that was my first, it was like, all right, we're going to make you a quarterback. Here you go. And it's like, okay, you know how it goes. It's like there's just always something. And so, but we got by it and shoot, that was probably the best. That 99 season, in terms of all my years that I was at Nebraska, was probably our best team. I don't think anybody, if there would have been a playoff, we win the championship that year. And, and if there's a playoff my senior year, we probably I don't know that we get there, so, either way, great teams and always happy to, just awesome to be able to look back and say, man, I was part of that Nebraska legacy that was so long in the 90s and early 2000s.
I was always interested, and I'd never asked you this after it happened, because I think by the time I had a chance to talk to you later, things were going well. You were starting, you were building the legacy that we know now. But was there friction between you and Bobby after that, or was there, was the locker room at any point divided? I mean, even for a moment, because I know a lot of people who saw the way you worked in that quarterback competition were a little bit surprised that you didn't get the nod initially.
Yeah, and I get it. It's fine. I mean, I would say there probably was. I mean, Bobby's very quiet natured, and I think, when all that went down, it was just kind of it was tough. I think we were able to set aside things during practice and meetings and the games. But in my opinion, Bobby became very like distant from any extra. It wasn't like hanging out with the team or being around a lot afterwards. It was kind of get in and get out. Um, and I felt for him because it's a tough, when you hear bad news, you kind of just have, is that side of you like. But I'll tell you what, though, I mean, if Bob, thank God Bobby stuck around. He was a playmaker and he helped us win a lot of football games, Missouri, Kansas at the end. I
Yeah, the
mean,
Kansas game. Yep.
Colorado games. Like I just remember Bobby being a huge, huge part of our success. And so I don't think anybody should ever take that away from how important he was to the program.
I was at the UAB game when you had your first full debut. I remember there was kind of a fire drill right before halftime to get up to the line of scrimmage in the red zone, get in the end zone right before halftime. And I remember I'm sitting next to some fans and they were being critical of the clock management. And they're like, what are we doing with this kid? What are we doing with this kid? Then all of a sudden you scoot around, you plunge into the end zone. And then all of a sudden, I love this kid. This kid's he's a warrior and everything. I'm like, okay, yeah. And I had to bite my tongue. I'm like, hey buddy, zip it over there. But you've always been Eric. And what I mean by that is, even from our humble beginnings at Nyhart Elementary, ruling the playground, to Panther football, to Millard North, and all the way up, even to this very day, you've always been a humble, very even keel guy. You see everything that these quarterbacks deal with, whether they're doing good things or they're struggling, and that bullseye is always on them. I know social media wasn't a big thing. It wasn't really even a thing, period. But people talk. People are around you. People always want to make their opinions known. How did you handle all of that pressure, whether it was the good moments or the bad moments? And what did you lean on during those times where maybe people were questioning you or criticizing you?
Well, I think obviously your coaches, your family members, your teammates, and you got to believe in yourself. I mean, point blank, not reading into these articles, not picking up the newspaper, not, now back in the day, it was picking up a newspaper. Now it's, picking up your phone and stuff's right there in front of you. And so you have to be extremely disciplined, to not go through and start reading the critical things that people are going to say. And I guess it's hard for me to make judgment on that because I didn't have to go through that. But I just, I can see, now today, what's happening. You just get on Twitter or Instagram, whatever you want to get on, and and it's there. And it's one of these things. I think you just have to learn how to focus. You got to be disciplined and learn how to focus. And again, believing in yourself and not even dealing with that exercise of reading through that. It's a waste of time.
Agreed.
I mean, you got to really focus in on, hey, this is what I need to do. I've got my teammates and my coaches and my tight group and around me, and we're going to stay focused on what's going to make this team better and how we're going to accomplish those goals versus, hey man, they're saying I can't throw. They're saying I'm that I'm too slow. I can't run. All this stuff. Like, say whatever you want.
I'd love to know who the hell said you're too slow. That's what I would like to know. If anybody said that, what the hell?
Too short, too slow, too this, too that. It's like, oh my gosh. And so, and you're always going to have people out there that are going to say things. That's just part of this world, man. It was happened when I played. It happened way before I played. It's going to happen for many, many more years. So, I think you just can't let it get to you. Probably easier said than done, but I think it's so important. Just like I said before, you just got to have those people around you that are just kind of leading you in the right direction. Like, hey man, don't worry about any of that stuff. Don't read it. Let's focus up, watch some film. Let's go work out. Let's do something productive because, reading through the threads or watching your, last week's game film or practice film, which one's more productive? I mean, that's a pretty easy. Yep.
Going to the 2001 season, the year you win the Heisman Trophy, you get to a national championship that year. There were some interesting games as well. I'll never forget the first ranked opponent you guys faced, because in 2000, nobody will ever forget your guys' trip to South Bend and that amazing game. By the way, I don't know if you realize this. My brother had a wedding on that day. So we were, I'll let him know your
wow.
disapproval on
I'm
that.
a little
But
disappointed.
we were elated when you got that touchdown. Now they hadn't had the ceremony yet, so as we're preparing for the ceremony and everything, you get the touchdown in
Probably one
overtime.
fun wedding after that.
It was a great wedding. So you helped the mood that day, but
Good.
that was one of the most iconic
Yeah.
moments in
Oh,
90s Husker foot. I mean, hell, in
yeah.
Husker football period, just
Yep.
seeing the amount of red. They
Yeah,
come back
I
to
agree.
Lincoln, and that game was a lot of fun. That was a top 25 Notre Dame team. It was a grinded out game. Defense was dominant in that game. Is that maybe the game in that 2001 season that you realize, okay, hey, there's something with this group. This is a group that, you guys feel like is at least in that top 2, top 3, top 4 caliber type
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I ever sat there and thought about like, hey, this is type of team we are. You're always just kind of working to get better.
Mhm.
I know it does stick out to me. We played Troy that year too. And I think we played Troy and Notre Dame back to back.
Yep.
And I was sick for both those games. I had like a 104, 105-degree temperature. I had the flu for almost 10 days straight and I couldn't kick it. So I will never forget that. And but in terms of just the fact that our team and what we were going to be able to accomplish that year, I mean, uh, we had a solid team. I mean, obviously we made it to a national championship game, so there's a lot said to be able to do that. And um, we had a good line, we had good defense. I mean, we had all around good players, and we're making had Dietrich and Dan Alexander. It's just there were some guys, Thunder Collins at running back. I mean, we had some guys, so it was like uh, when we were running the ball well, I think we led the country in the run game, and we had, like I said, a pretty solid defense that year. So, and then DeJuan Gross with his returning abilities and the special teams game, and we had, Josh Brown, kicking for us, and so yeah, we had a pretty solid all around team there.
The Oklahoma game was the game. It was the at the time the modern day
That was probably the
game of the
game.
century.
Actually, go back, yeah, that was probably the game where you start going, okay, I think we're doing all right now.
Is that the best environment at Memorial Stadium that you'd ever played in?
Yeah, it has to be one of them. I mean, just the sheer noise. I think after the catch that I made, and well, I should say the throw that Stunts made, the catch that I about dropped. But can you imagine? I dropped that ball. I mean,
I know. What the hell would we be talking about? I mean, you guys would have figured something else out.
You would have never even called me. You would never text me this morning about getting on this show. I promise you that. But no, just it's kind of funny to see the pictures and hear the stories about where you wouldn't imagine how many people that come in up to me and say, "Oh, I remember I was in that corner and you came running in and a high five." Blah, blah, and this, I was here and I was there and I was watching this and and I'm sure there probably was no weddings on that day, right?
No, geez, yeah.
But
I'm sure someone had one. It was an 11 a.m. kickoff, so you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I know it was, but again, just to I think top ranked teams, a rivalry game, and really what that game did, I think wasn't really. I almost want to say it was more for Frank getting over the hump.
Yeah.
We since he took over in '98, we were 9-4 that first year, and then I think we go like 11 and something the second year, and same thing in 2000, maybe 11 and 1 or 2, and then it's so winning against a top 5 ranked opponent or something like that is really, I think, when you're able to accomplish something like that, it's just okay. He did it. He was able to get the job done, and it was against a rival team. So
You guys played in the few years that you guys had this thing rolling when you were a starting quarterback. I can't imagine there was a more talented team than you guys played ever than that Miami team that year.
yeah, they were. I talk about that team a lot. I mean, you go back, and I was just reading how many guys on that team on the roster that either made the NFL or Hall of Fame that weren't playing. Right, they weren't even starters. Right. And so you can name the list of all the guys that there was a lot of them. but it always kind of baffles me a little bit about who wasn't even playing that week, so it's pretty cool, to be able to go up against those guys and, play against Ed Reeds and, the Vilmas and, yeah, and Brian McKinney's offensive
Mhm.
tackle is at the Rams with, there's, all kinds of guys and I mean, the list goes on. Jeremy Shockey, you just keep, there's just so many of them on that list. Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis is running back, Ken Dorsey at quarterback. And um, I even think Vince Wilfork was on that team
Yep.
as
Yep.
well. But so anyway, it just, I always take my hat. Frank and I actually talked last night about that game, and I kind of teased him a little bit. I said, "Hey, Frank, is there, I guess, you could have gave me a few more carries that game." I said it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered. We did turn the ball over 4 times. You can't do that against a team like Miami, and you know, and they just had so much talent, and speed. I mean, it was kind of crazy to look at Ken Dorsey, and they were, I don't think he got a grass stain on his jersey or his pants the
Yeah.
whole season. I'm thinking, geez, what kind of quarterback is that? Like I said, that's a really good line right there, man.
Yeah.
That's what you want if you're a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
But our style was different. Obviously, we were running it, but if you're throwing it, and Ken Dorsey's gone on to have a nice, NFL
Mhm.
career coaching and all that. So, um, you know, kudos for him for what he's been able to accomplish in his career as well. So, it was a great team, and even though we didn't win the game, I mean, you still got to appreciate the competition and the level. And again, I think people talk about that as being one of the greatest teams in college football ever, and I probably agree with them. I don't know. It's hard to say if they were the greatest. Um, there's certainly an argument out there for it.
If I remember this correctly, one of your first major contributions to Nebraska football, wasn't it helping out with the scout team as Peyton Manning getting ready for that Orange Bowl?
Yeah,
You were
yeah.
Peyton Manning, weren't you?
Well, see, my first year, I ended up having, I redshirted, and
Mhm.
then I had a couple surgeries at an ankle and a knee, and I didn't come back until sometime in like October to practice. It was the scout team, so it's kind of mid-season, so you come back and you're on the scout team. And I do remember, that's one of the things that kind of probably got me ready to play at Nebraska was running away from Jason Peter and Grant Wistrom, Jay Foreman and all those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely you grow up a lot when you're faced with those guys every week, and then all of a sudden, you're sitting in that meeting. Hey, we're going national championship, and all of a sudden, in your locker, sitting the Peyton Manning jersey, and for like for 1 month, I'm Peyton Manning. So whatever happened to him in that game, that's exactly what happened to me during during practice for a month. It happened to him for one night. It happened to me for 30.
Hey, you know what though? If you ever run into Peyton again, you can say you didn't have the wheels like I did. Okay,
Yeah,
at
hopefully
least
I'll
you had
see
to
him
throw it.
tonight.
There you go. So, Eric, just in closing this out too, when you go back to just your time at Nebraska, but also that final year as a Heisman Trophy winner, and the memories that you have with that, and especially with the Heisman Trophy, at some point, again, social media didn't exist, but at some point, those lists come out. You're on those lists. You're on the Heisman Trophy watch list. You are at the beginning of the season. You are throughout the year. Compartmentalizing all of that, because again, to know you is you're about the team. Those individual awards were always secondary. But at some point, did you ever allow yourself to enjoy that part of it? Enjoy that individual award, because you cleaned up at the college football awards the days before that too. But did you ever allow yourself in that year to enjoy what you as an individual accomplished?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I enjoy the nature of the game, and being on a team, being in that locker room, going to practice, training hard, working hard, and then going out there and playing in front of, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on TV. And I think what I was able to do is not let all of that bother me. Sometimes, young quarterbacks or quarterbacks in general, you're on the stage, you're on center stage, and there's a lot of people counting on you to play well, especially if you're a quarterback at Nebraska. The expectations just go down the list and of the names that played there. And I think I was able to do a really good job of blocking those things out, blocking out the fact that I was on a, Heisman watch list, or, hey, you're on the Davey O'Brien or Johnny Unitas or Mac, or whatever award it was. And, just coming to practice and showing up and having fun and building, relationships with your teammates. And can you always do a better job? Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's just that, the drive to want to be better each day, and just like you said, I was able to really enjoy it. I enjoyed it, and I miss football. I mean, been out of it for almost 14 years now. And but I think you're always going to miss it. It's just one of those things. But it's so much fun to be invited to New York City, or be invited back to the College Football Hall of Fame, and to be able to be part of this and shake hands with guys, and just talk to guys that that went through the same thing that you did. And some didn't have a successful pro career, some did, some are doing business now, and some aren't. I mean, some are still trying to find their ways. And so you're just very fortunate now to be a part of such a special group of elite athletes and coaches. And now it's just all about the friendships. It's all about the relationships, and trying to help people. And for me, that's what it is. That's why I come back. I come back to just be around. Um, you know, I, I'm not relevant really. I don't have any. There's no other reason why I come back, just to be around. And hopefully I can. Maybe there's something that I could, in conversation or teaching, or something that a player or a coach or something might have commonality, and you become friends. I mean, really, it's a little bit of networking, but you never know where that's going to lead you in life. I mean, that's just it's what it is.
You represented the athletic department for so long, for very, very well. I know you do that with the Heisman fraternity as well. Eric, I always enjoy when our paths cross. I love being able to reminisce on this one too, because I think it's been too long since we've been able to talk about what that whole situation was like. And I'm glad now I know what the suit game. Did you wear the suit to the wedding at least at all, or?
No, I know. No, I don't know if I probably wore it once or twice, maybe back to the Heisman,
Okay.
and I'm not sure why. Maybe I just, to be honest, like maybe that was the first suit that I saw in my closet and I grabbed it. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe that was the one that was clean at the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't carry too many of them in my closet right now. There's probably that one and maybe two others. So it's kind of changed now. It's more jackets and slacks. It's more a little casual. But I did broadcasting for 5 years, so I did get a few shirts and some jackets and stuff, and I did have fun broadcasting. I will say that that was a good time.
Well, wishing you all the best. Great stuff with Crouch Recreation as well, and
Always good to talk to you.
You as well. Hey, enjoy Vegas, and hey, have a blast out in New York as well. Give everyone our best. But hey, thanks for coming on, my man.
Absolutely. Always great talking to you, and you have a great day.